GG, I am John Tavar, Lionel, Chris Ryder. We all dinner at the Round Table Podcast, your source to knowledge. Today is a special segment. For those who may know this or may not know this, Donald Trump, our president, can't believe I'm saying this right now, Donald Trump, our president, just verbally confirmed that there will be a second stimulus bill. He didn't get into details as far as it's going to be a one-time check, if it's going to be a monthly check, and how much it's going to be. But he did say the stimulus bill is going to be very generous, and it will be released in a couple of weeks. But knowing Trump, that's subject to interpretation. Before we begin, though, I want to make sure that you guys click, share, and most importantly, subscribe by pressing the link at the right-hand corner of your screen. It would be greatly appreciated. You know what I'm saying? Dinner at the Round Table Podcast, your source to knowledge. As you remember, we got our first stimulus check in April, which was for most people $1,200 plus $500 if you have a child as a dependent and is 17 under. And don't get me wrong, $1,200. I mean, no one really, who's going to reject $1,200? It is something, and it did help out. However, it was just a one-time check. This is not going to relieve all your financial problems in the long term. So, you were forced to really spend this money very wisely because, again, we don't know if there's going to be a second stimulus and if what's going to happen to the pandemic. Or, we're going to start reopening. Are people going to be, going back to work? So again, though, we were forced to really spend this money very wisely, especially when you live in a city that's very, expensive to live in. Like me here, New York City, the cost of living is ridiculous out here. So, obviously, we had to spend it on the obvious things that, we have to, take care of, which is our rent, food, utility. So, $1,200 is not going to cover, for the remaining months, especially, knowing, when this pandemic's going to be over. So again, $1,200, I'm not, saying it's nothing, but, in the long term, it's not going to relieve the problems. It's not going to really solve, our problems in the long term. And the harsh reality as well is that many didn't even receive their first check. So that's another thing, we have to look at. But the good news is that if you did receive the first check, you are going to receive the second one. And, again, we don't know how much it's going to be. We don't know how it's going to work, if it's going to be a recurring check. I mean, what Trump says is going to be very generous. That is so subject to interpretation, again, because we don't know. But those are the big questions, And, unfortunately, the bad news is this, though. The discussion and the negotiation to vote on this second stimulus bill may not happen until July 17th because the Senate will be on vacation. So once they return from vacation, that will also depend on how long it would take for them to actually come to a final agreement of the stimulus bill. So this may not even happen until the end of July or even the beginning of August. Who knows? But I do strongly believe, though, that Trump is going to put a lot of pressure. And I'm going to tell you why. One of the major reasons is that he's up for re-election this year. And November will come here before you even know it. So, Trump is definitely going to push for the second stimulus bill. And I firmly believe that he's going to definitely do his best of making sure this bill is passed as promptly as possible. Now, unemployment. The federal unemployment benefit, which gives people an additional $600 per week, will end July 31st. Currently, about 40 million people are unemployed. And that's a lot. That's a lot of people. And, not all of them are receiving unemployment checks. So, it's a big debate, with this, because now, there are some people who are unemployed, but because of the enhanced unemployment benefit, they're actually making more money staying unemployed rather than going back to work. So, I'm thinking that the second stimulus bill is going to be used as an incentive to get people back to work. In fact, the Secretary of Treasury, Mnuchin, said that the second stimulus bill is going to be more focused on jobs. So I'm assuming that it's basically going to create a way to decrease the unemployment rate, because before this pandemic took in effect, the unemployment rate in January was about 3.5%. That's almost an all-time low. So, to my understanding, is that they're proposing of giving people who are unemployed basically an incentive of $450 a week for several of weeks. I'm not sure what several of weeks means. Again, these are things that are subject to interpretation. If they go back to work. Now, the problem is that not everyone is able to return to work if businesses are still closed. And if they don't extend the enhanced unemployment benefit, who knows what's going to happen? And especially, depending on where you live, where the cost of living is extremely high. So this varies. And this is why I've been pushing so hard for the UBI, the Universal Basic Income. If you haven't watched my video about the UBI, please watch it. It's very informative. You will gain a lot of information. Because, the question people always bring up is, how are we going to pay for it? Well, how do we pay for our defense budget? The U.S. currently spends $934 billion on the defense budget. That's almost $1 trillion, And the reality is that we need an economic evolution. Our current socioeconomic system is heavily outdated. We have the technology and the know-how to end social inequality and to reduce or even eliminate the 40 plus hours of labor that we have to commit ourselves to stay employed, to earn a living that's going to meet our needs, when automation could easily reduce our hours. In fact, they're predicted in the next 20 years that about 44% of the jobs today could be replaced by automation. And that's something to really think about, especially for the younger generation. I always tell my students, the economy is going to drastically change. We have to do something about it now. And the first step is to spread the information so more can be aware of this. So yeah, we got to really start thinking about what's going to eventually happen, especially with automation. Technology is getting more advanced and advanced by the day. So I'm gonna leave it like that. Video for part 2 will be out soon. But as I always say, always keep an open mind to new information. And just, always challenge and always question. I'm John Tavar, Dinner at the Round Table Podcast, your source to knowledge. Peace out.